Starting off, if you're new, all of this falls under the ministry of a 501c3 called Four Streams Partners. This is one of 5 or 6 things that happens every week. It took me a while to realize how much was going on in the course of a year with men on mission, men in community. But this is the mission statement that our board and our leaders have come up with over years. The mission of Four Streams Partners is to awaken men, not just on Saturdays mornings, but to awaken men on a hour by hour, moment by moment basis to more life through a relationship with Jesus that's not just informational, but it's transformational. This kind of relationship where we grow from glory to glory in Christ, as Paul put that into language, because we can know a great deal, but if we're honest, we all know far more than we are living. We know more truth than we're putting into practice. So that's part of waking up, is beginning to walk out and to live the things that God puts in our hearts. That's the deal. And then if you're new, I'll give you a quick look. We won't go into this in great detail. Just some ground rules for this gathering, but also this is true for our weekends. We do 4 to 6 retreats a year. And number one, this began at retreats where we tell our stories in small groups. Now, we don't do that here at this meeting in a real particular way. And yet, there's such an environment of transparency and vulnerability that often some very personal things get said. So we just would ask you to commit that what's said here stays here. We've had some very open, vulnerable things said. My favorite is number 2. We are here primarily for connection. Connection with God. It's like strengthening a muscle that you haven't strengthened for a while. It's connecting with God here so that you can connect with God when you're home, either alone or with your wife or with people in your sphere of influence. Connecting with God and with other men. This is the one rule we have on a weekend. It's kind of the very, very strong suggestion and a rule. Don't ask another man what he does for a living. And that may sound strange, but the reason is we just have so much anecdotal proof over 70 retreats. We had a gentleman who was here on a weekend retreat who was making 7 figures, and at the end of the weekend he was so grateful. He said, "Thank you for that rule, because when with that rule, people come and they ask me what I do for a living because they figured out that I've done well financially, and they just pick at me all weekend long, looking for tips and techniques so that they can do better financially, and it just destroys my weekend." And nobody did that this weekend. Then there's the flip side of the guy who has just been laid off, or maybe he's been laid off for 18 months, and he's been. Too many of us know what unemployment feels like. Too many of us know what it feels like to all of a sudden have worked and worked in a significant way, in a way that you love, and then you're not. And it does something to the soul of a man. So if you ask that man what he does for a living, he feels very small and very diminished. And it's not right. So we just cut that all together off at the knees. So what we're asking you to use your brain and use your heart and and learn better conversation. This is deeper than cocktail party conversation. So instead of saying, "Hey Frank, what do you do for a living?" Say, "Frank, why are you here? Tell me what you love. What brought you here? Tell me 3 things you love to do." I mean, you have to expand your vocabulary a little bit, but you guys are bright enough to do that. So we trust you to do that. The next several are more about, this is not about fixing somebody. So we've got men here this is a trans-denominational gathering. So there's people from probably 15 churches in the room. And we are here because of our common love for Jesus Christ. So you're going to hear some things as guys express their hearts, and you go, "I think I can fix that one." So just don't go there. That's not really helpful. That's some of our ground rules. If you're brand new, listen. But one of the things that is beautiful is that this is not my show. What happens on a really good day is that we'll show a number of film clips, or we'll read scripture. God has a theme for us that I often don't even know until we're 20 minutes in. And if we show a film clip, you'll hear me ask questions like, "Tell me what you felt when you saw that clip." And a lot of you aren't used to feeling. A lot of us aren't used. A lot of men aren't used to going to feeling. The closest we get is anger on the highway. But if you ponder it for a minute, sometimes it makes you sad, or you feel some great joy, or you're moved to tears almost. What we're really trying to get at is what's going on in your heart. And it's an opportunity for you to put language to what's going on in your heart. And there's this collective bubble that's invisible to us, that when you speak out from your heart, it just gathers in the room. And God has this way that I wish I really understood better, but everybody in the room will hear the same thing, from the same words, but you'll all hear something uniquely different for your heart from God. I don't know how God does that. I can't explain that. He just knows your language. So, as you have a chance to, and a lot of guys will come several weeks and they're trying to figure out, why the heck am I getting up and going to this office complex, and why do I like it? And a few guys have figured it out. They've come back and said, "This is the first time I've ever had a voice in a setting where Jesus is king." It's just really hard to go to the first Charismatic Baptist Costalarian church that you go to, and the preacher is preaching, and you have a question mid-sermon. Can I? You just don't get, nobody calls on you, So you don't get to put language to it. But when you begin to put language to what's going on, it becomes more real to you. It becomes transformational. So that's just an opening ground rule. How's your week been?